Where do we get up to? What's that? Today's Mem Gimel, right? Yeah. Oh, we got to the bottom line, right?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is second to bottom line.
Yeah, so we said Daiga, right? Daiga. Daiga is not a good thing. Yeah. Va'atem iatem, right? Iatem came. So you, meaning the what's it called says. How do you call it? The Mashuach Melchama says to them, "You're not like the Gevinim who had what's the name? Should remember from yesterday already, right? Goliath, right? And you're not like the Ammon who had Shaivach, right? You have the Hashem. What do you have to say this to them for? Right? Yeah, so because it says Rashi says really two kashas here. He hit record? Did he hit record?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. He did? Yeah, okay. One is that what's this haftacha? He should have said Ki Hashem Elokeichem imachem. Right? And then also, what is this mashma that Hashem is going with them? Hashem is going with them on the war. At the war, he's going with them. So our answer is Mipnei Hashem, v'chol kinuyav, Hashem, and all his nicknames, right? I don't know if nicknames is the right term, but all the different names of Hashem, on Tamid Aleph now, Munachin ba'aron, they put it into the Aron, right? And so Mamela, and the Aron goes with Klal Yisrael onto the wars. So, and then Mamela, that's what it means that that Hashem is going with them, right? Now Taisus, the last Taisus on the Amid, talks about that there's a machlokes is whether there's two Arons or one Aron. Some shittas say that there was an Aron that stayed, and then there was the travel Aron. I guess it was the travel Aron, right? That went with Klal Yisrael, right? So okay, so it's interesting. So it's mashma from here that they put it into the Aron, the special Aron that was meant for Klal Yisrael for the wars, right? Fine. B'chein hu aimer v'yishach ha'isam Moshe elef lamata l'tzava isam v'es Pinchas, and Moshe sent them, right, 1,000 to each shevet to the war. Isam v'es Pinchas. Isam, who's the Isam? Who are the ones that went to war? Elo Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin went out to war. Pinchas is a Mashuach Melchama. Pinchas is a reference to the Kohen who was Mashuach Melchama, who was the Mashuach, meaning Pinchas was the first one, right? That was the Mashuach Melchama that went out to war. Uklei HaKodesh, and what does it mean Klei HaKodesh? The Aron v'Luchas Shavai. That's the Aron and the Luchas, right? So now the question is, so according to those shittas that say there were two Arons, so they took the Aron with the Luchas, right? So that's that's a kasha. Fine. The chatzaitzros hatrua elu hashayfos, and the chatzaitzros, the trumpets of the trua, are the shayfaros. Fine. Okay, so that's all those things went out to the wars with the Yidden. Tana, Pinchas didn't go out to the Melchama for no reason. El lipara din avi imay. He went to do payback for the father of his mother. Shenema. And the Midyanim sold him to Mitzrayim. Meaning, so what we're saying here is that Pinchas's grandparents were Midyanim, right? And he was very unhappy that they sold his grandfather to Mitzrayim. So Mamela, he wanted to get some revenge.
They weren't Midyanim, they were his Yosef.
What?
It was Yosef. It wasn't Midyanim.
What do you mean?
His grandparents weren't Midyanim.
His grandparents, yeah, that's what it's saying.
No,
it wasn't. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say. Yeah, I didn't have what I was saying. Yes, thank you. Now, his grandparents, he wanted to get, because of his grandfather, Yosef, he wanted to get at the Midyanim, right? I was mixing up the next one. Yeah.
So right. Why didn't he want to get back at the Shvatim?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. You could add that to the questions.
That's not that. I'm saying that the shame Shaya. Shaya is that this morning. I didn't ask it this morning.
It could be the Shvatim got their punishment. I don't know. It's another kasha in the.
Wait a minute. Didn't the Shvatim sell them to the Midyanim?
That's what we just did.
Yes, as you're saying.
So you're asking why what?
It said wants to get revenge on the Midyanim. So why didn't he want to get revenge on the Shvatim?
Well, yeah. No, he should have wanted to get revenge. Anyways, fine. So Lamemra. So we say the Pinchas mi Yosef. I'll see. Do you say that Pinchas came from? What are we saying? That Pinchas came from Yosef? Elazar ben Aaron lokachlam b'benois petia loyla isha, and Elazar ben Aaron took for his wife from the kids from Petia as a wife. So my love, the Asimi Yisrael, isn't that talking about Yisrael? Shepitem agalim lavaydus kachavim. Yisrael would fatten calves for Avodah Zarah. That's why his name was Petia, right? From the word mefatim, right? And I guess kel means for a god. So wasn't he an anacle of Yisrael? So we say loy, no. Mi Yosef shepitpat beYitzray. He's from Yosef, who was mefatfit. He what do you call it? He was kaivish his yaitzer. He was mefatfit his yaitzer. Right? So it's not Yosef. It's not Yisro. It's Yosef. Also, Gemara asks, but the Shvatim will mevaze him, right? Because when Pinchas did the kanois, right, at the end of Parshas Pinchas, at the beginning, at the end of Parshas, what is it? Balak. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Right. So then that's when he did the Maisa. Then he got a parsha named after him. But when he did that, the Shvatim were everywhere upset at him. Re'isem ben Paitizeh. You see the son of this Paiti, right? Ben Shapitim Avi Ima Agom. This guy, this son Pinchas, whose mother's father, meaning Yisrael, was making calves fat for Avodah Zarah. Yereg Nasi mi Yisrael. Is going to go kill a Nasi from Yisrael, right? Right. So you see that it was Yisrael. Ella. So that's a very interesting teretz. I mean, I found it interesting. Ella iyavu the imei mi Yosef. If his father of his mother was Yosef, then his mother's mother was Yisrael. And if his mother's mother was from Yosef, and his father, his mother's father was from Yisrael. So what are we saying here? We're saying, we know for sure he's a kid from Yisrael. He's a product of Yisrael and Yosef. Right? He's a product of Yisrael and Yosef. We just don't know which way. Right? So it's based, so it's not based on any sort of historical facts. It's based on these psukim. So we know that it has to be like that. And then that's it. Yeah. Fine. Fine. The Benois Patil is mashma too. Shma mina. So we hear from this that it's that. Fine. Okay, so that's that. I got it to Gemara. Shtickle, I got it to Gemara. Fine. Next Mishnah. So now we continue with what else that the Mashuach Milchama told the armies. So the Dibru Hashaytrim Elam Lema. And then the Shaitrim, meaning the officers, would tell the Klai Yisrael, right? Anybody who built a new house and wasn't mechanech yet. So mechanech yet really means that he hasn't really lived in it yet. He should go home, right? And because then he might lose the house. Yeah. Echad abayna. So what does this mean? Echad abayna, beis hateven. This doesn't have to necessarily just be a house. It could be somebody who builds a house with grain, right? Beis habakar. It could be for cattle. Beis ha'etzim. It could be for wood. Beis ha'eitzres. It can be for storage houses. Echad abayna. Whether he built it or whether he bought it, whether he yarshined it, whether he was given to him by matana. Meaning basically anybody who has a new house doesn't have to go to the war, which we're going to see in the Gemara exactly what's going on here, right?
Regarding this, what's the halacha with the bank owning 95% of it? Is it still his new house?
Has nothing to do with the bank. It says
no, it's a big shiloh.
If you're talking about a mortgage, the bank doesn't own the house. The bank owns a mortgage. That holds a mortgage. It doesn't own the house. In order for them to own the house, they have to go through a whole process to foreclose on it. But a mortgage doesn't mean that if you go shoot fist with the bank, it's a different story. But that's not, I believe you think mortgage, and mortgage does not mean that bank owns the house. When you stop paying, it still doesn't.
In common law, you're correct. But Lamaisa, they paid for 95% of the house. Who bought the house?
I don't know what you mean. What's the difference? Common law. They don't own the house. You know, so I don't know what means unless you're a shooter with the bank. But you're not a shooter with the bank. You're not a shooter with the bank. You're paying off. When you're paying off a mortgage. You're not paying the house, even though you're saying par of principal. But that doesn't mean the bank owns the house at all. The bank doesn't own the house.
So Yaakov, is it so pashut in halacha like you're saying?
I don't know. It's a big what do you call it? It's a big diyun. Some say you can make shechiyonu when you buy a new house. Some say you can't make a shechiyonu. I personally tell people to get a new fruit if they want to make shechiyonu, because why get involved in the shiloh? But that should come as no surprise. But I think ultimately the bank does, the person does own the house. I think. But we're going to see about shutfis and maybe on a base. Yeah, or maybe tomorrow's daf. I don't remember.
Why all these things tied in that you can't go out a house or?
I mean, why is it so important?
What if I buy a new car? It's not. It is. I'm saying a car is, a house is not.
I don't know what they would say about a car, Taka.
If I buy a plane, I'm saying like, what's like? Why is this? And why is it buying a new house stopping a person from going out to war?
Because it's on their head.
No, so we're going to see really in 2 daf from now or 1 daf from now that really the only reason is the main patur is those that don't want to go into the war because they're afraid that they're chatoim and then they're going to get killed because of the chatoim.
Where's the house? Where's the house?
No, so the house is hiding it. The Torah gave us a few things so that we won't know why a person's going back. It sounds very interesting, but
it's really based on the machlokes Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Kiva. Whether a person has to be a tzaddik gomer or a mammon, complete mammon. But in order to be either one of those, you can't be worried about anything else. So if someone's worried about his house, his new wife, his whatever, he's going to be worried about something. He's not completely mammon b'Hashem at that moment. He's not. So
why does the Mishnah just say if a person nervous about his chatoim, then
it's explaining a pasuk. Pasuk says all of these things.
Why is the pasuk?
Why did Hashem say something?
Why did he mask it in the thing of the form of a house?
Huh?
Why did he mask it?
Why did he do it in the form of a house? I don't know. I don't know why he did it in the form of a house, but that's
because that's something that pretty much at least 99% of all people are worried about a new house. You're excited about it, worried about it. So it takes your mind away from what we should be thinking.
Also, you don't want to lose the new house, right? They didn't have courts. I mean, they had courts back then, but you could, you don't live in a house and somebody takes it over and finished. I think. And a kerem too. Well, let's see. And then the next one is not a kerem. Somebody he planted a vineyard and he wasn't mechalit, right? Which means that he had a vineyard and your first 3 years you can't eat from the vineyard, right? Because it's arla. And then you have neta ravai. And then you have to bring up the first fruits of Yerushalayim. So if he never was able to benefit from his vineyard, so he could also go back. So that's whether the guy actually planted himself, or whether he planted 5 trees together, hence that chart in the Rashi. Right? Meaning, what? How do you get mine has trees here, but yours has just stars. The old one has asterisk, right? Yeah. The new one has trees, at least mine. Yeah. Whether he puts, it has to be 5 trees that actually give off fruit. And even if they're from 5 different types of fruit, meaning an apple and an orange and a tangerine, or maybe tangerines and orange, okay, whatever. Anyway, I don't even know if I can name 5 fruits. Passion fruit, Elio, if you're on, right? Whether he plants it, or whether he does havracha. Havracha is rachamim is he layers it, is the way Art Scroll teaches it, right? Meaning you just put one on top of the other. And what markiv is grafting, right? So markiv means basically you stick it inside a branch of one type of tree. Well, it could be the same type of tree from one tree, and you stick it into another tree, right? Rachamim looks like I'm not saying it right. Okay. But I don't know. That's basically what Harkava is. And whether you buy it, or you yarshin, or whether it's given to you in matana. That's the second one. So the first one is a new house. Second one is a new vineyard. And then the third, is somebody who gets engaged. We call it engaged, but meaning the first stage of marriage, kiddushin, right? To a woman. Echad ma'aris as a basula, whether he's marrying a basula, echad ma'aris as almana, whether he's marrying a widow, v'afilu shemeres yavam. Even if it's a shemeres yavam, meaning his brother died, and he is supposed to be doing the yibum. V'afilu shama shemes achav b'milchama. Even if they heard that his brother died in milchama, chayzer ubaloi. He goes home, and he goes home in the middle of the war. Right? Kol elu ve'elu. So anyway, so those are the 3. So kol elu ve'elu shaymin divrei kayin ma'archim milchama. They have to first go out to the war. These guys are going to be different levels here. These guys all have to go out to the war. They have to listen to the kayin who's talking about the arrangements of the war. And then they go back and they have to give water and food, and they have to fix the roads. Meaning there was a word for that in the army, right? They're not active. They're active, but they're not. Isn't there a word for that? They're, for the police, it would be like desk duty, right? Rabban, you're muted.
Reserve, like the reserve?
No, they're not in combat.
Like the reserve,
Support people.
Support. Yeah, they're providing support, right? They're not on the front lines. They're active. What do you say, Moshe? Not active combat.
For every soldier in the front line, there's 9 people supporting him.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Wow. That's even nowadays.
That's army supporters.
That was in World
War
II.
supporters.
That was in World War II. I know. I don't know now. I don't know the percentage now.
It's army supporters. If it's in sports, it's athletic supporters.
I'm rocking. Yeah. Fine. Okay. Be'elu. On that note, we'll go back to so anyway, so those guys, they're sort of putter, but they're not putter. I mean, they have to be involved. They just don't go to the front lines. And who are the ones that don't go back at all? So he built a house for a gates and an achsadra, as a, how do you call an achsadra? Like a porch or a portico is also a portico, right? We had it in sukkah. And then merpeset is a porch. Okay, these type of meaning these are accessories to the house. These are not mamish the house. So naiteya, that's one. So them, that doesn't pater him. If he plants 4 trees that give off fruit or 5 trees that don't give off fruit, so even though he planted trees, but he doesn't have enough to qualify for the patur from the army, and Hamachzer is kushasai, and it's somebody who's divorced his wife and is remarrying her. So that guy doesn't have the same amount of simcha, so therefore he has to stay on the front lines. Almana l'koyin gadol, grusha v'chalutza l'koyin hadi. Let's say an almana married a koyin gadol, which is aser, right? It's a lav, right? And grusha v'chalutza l'koyin hedjit also. Mamzeres and nesina liyisrael. If a mamzeres and nesina married Yisrael, bas Yisrael l'mamzer l'nasan, a bas Yisrael for a mamzer l'nasan, lo yihaya chayzer, they don't go back, right? Because they, we'll see in the Gemara exactly, but they did something. Their marriage is anyways not supposed to be. Right?
The Gemara asks from these cases on Rabbi Yossi.
What?
How do these cases not go back according to Rabbi Yossi? Rabbi Yossi holds they need to be a tzaddik gomer. Alman l'kohen gadol doesn't really fit the bill.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means anyways.
Where's where you see Rabbi Yossi?
Coming.
So we ask him when we see it. Nobody knows
what words are basically talking about.
Yeah.
A regular? What is 2 different types of words? Rishos or
well, that's what we're going to get to with the rishus and okay. Let's see. Rabbi Yehuda, even somebody who builds his house, meaning what do you call it? He how do you say it? He remodeled.
Consecrates.
Right. Well, he didn't reconsecrate. I'm saying he knocked down his house and built another house in the same place. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that's not enough of a simcha, right? If that's the right word to call it, simcha. That's not called a new house, right? Fine. Rabbi Lezer, even if you built a bricks house in Sharon, in the Sharon area, right? Still called like that, right? Yeah. So that. So Rashi says that the ground there is no good for bricks. And basically you had to, if you built a house there, you have to do it twice in every 3.5 years. You have to rebuild your house because the bricks fizzle out. So even though it's like a temporary house, even though it's a house, but you still don't go back. And there are those that don't move from their place at all, meaning they don't even have to go to the front lines. So far, we had those that don't get to go back. Then the first case was those that have to go to the front lines, then they go to support. The second one is they go to the front lines, they don't come back. And now the third one is that they don't even have to go to the front lines.
You muted it, Tzviakov.
How'd that happen?
I think someone meant to mute someone else. And hit your button by mistake.
Here. I maybe muted everybody. Thank you. So Elo Shein Zazim coming. These are the ones that don't move from the place. If you build a house and he was machanachit, meaning he did a Chanukas Abayis, but he didn't live there yet fully for a year. Not a kerem v'chalaloi. He built a kerem, or he planted a kerem, and he redeemed it. But the neta revai, which he has to bring up to Eretz Yisrael, he didn't finish eating those fruits. If he married his arusa, but he wasn't, meaning before the first part was when he got what we call engaged, and then he got married. And he didn't finish Shana Rishana. Konis is Yevimta, and somebody who married was Yevimta. Shanema Noki Lebeisa Shana Achas. He has to be clean to his house, which really means like free to his house for 1 year. Lebeisa is Beisai. For the house meaning the word Lebeisa means he has to be in his house for a year. The word Yia is karma, that's his vineyard. The Simach is Ishtai Zu Ishtai. The Simach is Ishtai is his wife. Asher lakach lahavi as yivimta, that includes his yivama, right? Ain Masabkan Lamayim wasn't. These people do not have to support, meaning they don't have to give water and food. They don't have to fix the roads either. So from this Mishnah, some want to say that that's the inyan of Chanukah Sabayis, because from this Mishnah, it seems like there's such a concept of Chanukah Sabayis, right? The first case is talking about where he got his new house, but he wasn't mechanachit, right? He's not as potter. He still has to be in support. But if a guy got his new house and was mechanachit, and he wasn't there for a year, then he doesn't even have to go out to the war at all, right? So you see, there is some sort of concept of making a Chanukah Sabayis.
What's mechanech mean? You have to live there 30 days?
I'm not sure exactly how you define mechanech, right? I don't know exactly what it means.
You live there for a night. You have to make a party.
Some want to say that you need to make a suda, right? That's Chanukah Sabayis. Others say, what do you mean? That's not the ikr. The ikr is to do Maisim Toivim, right? To do Maisim Toivim and do
you have
some,
to make your first parlor meeting there. You have to learn.
A parlor meeting would be a good thing if you have. If you're doing
you have to make a share.
Something like that. Something like that. Yeah.
Does the Gemara say it anywhere in Shas? No.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Other than this, as far as I know, but I don't know. And then another thing is there's a fascinating balaturim on the Simach is Ishtoi, right? That he used to be with his wife for a year. The Simach is Gematria, 300 and where's it go? Simach 354, right? So 354 days you have to be together with your wife. That's what it says. That's the balaturim on that. Fine. Okay, so those are the madrigas. So Tana Rabban and the Gemara says.
Does that mean that the Shana Rishon is a deraisa? I thought it was a Takanas Chazal.
I don't know. This sure seems like that.
I mean, it's brought down as a Takanas Chazal, not a mitzvah, but here it's straight out of the pasuk.
Well, the question is, what is sleeping away from your wife in Shana Rishon might be, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it might be deraisa. Not so.
But the Agashin is saying it seems like the Simach is Ishta. You have to make your wife. I know they tumble about it exactly what's entailed.
I mean, if she's Michael, maybe. There's
Mechila. There is Mechila. Right? Okay. Tana Rabban. Dibra Shaitim, and the Shaitim are speaking. Yachal Dvarim Shal Atzman. So you think, okay, the Shaitim speak, the officers, they'll say whatever they want. So Kishuaimer Vayaswa Shaitrim, when it says later on, and the Shaitrim will say more things, that's talking about them saying their own thing. We're talking about Meshuach Mechama. Okay, it's not what's the case. Kayin Medaber, Shaitr Mashmiya. The Kayin speaks, and the Shaitr is heard, right? So Tani Chadok. So now we have a few variations. Tani Chadok, Kayin Medaber, Shaitr Mashmiya. The Kayin speaks, and the Shaitr listens. Doesn't listen, meaning he's like the Maturgamer, right? The Tani Ida Kayin Medaber, but Kayin Mashmiya. The Kayin speaks, and the Kayin also acts as the announcer. The Tani Ida Shaitr Medaber, but Shaitr Mashmiya. We have another one where the Shaitr speaks and the Shaitr Mashmiya. Amar Abai Haketzad. Mivanigash Va'ad V'dibru, from when the Kayin comes close to speak and then speak. Kayin Medaber, but Kayin Mashmiya. That's the Kayin. Kayin does everything. Mivadibru Ad V'yasvu, from V'dibru Ad V'yasvu, it's Kayin Medaber V'Shaitr Mashmiya. The Kayin speaks and the Shaitr yells it out. Maybe Yosifu V'Elech Shaitr Medaber V'Shaitr Mashmiya. The Shaitr speaks and the Shaitr he does both. Okay, fine. So somebody who builds a new house. That only tells me if he actually built the house. If he bought a house, he inherited a house, or was given to him as a present. How do you know that he also is exempt from fighting? Who's the person who built the house? How do you know that the houses, like houses that are not actually meant for living, but it's meant for the grain or for the cattle or for wood or for stam storage house. How do you know that if somebody does that, he also doesn't go to war? Which was darshanim mikol makom from anywhere. Yochol shani marba af habayna beishar asadar mepeset. You would think that maybe if he builds a base shar asadar mepeset, amalayim bias, meaning those are just accessories. So accessories are not enough to pot to you. Ma bias a royal dira, af kol a royal dira. Just like a bias, it has to be a house that's meant to be lived in. So anything else is royal dira. Right? A house is kimashmoy, meaning you have to actually build it. It can't, none of these other, I'm sorry, that's it. Right? Bias kimashmoy. It's only like his, meaning you could only if you built the bias, not, he disagrees with the Tan and the Mishnah. Yeah? Fine. Then it says, loy chanach, v'loy chanachoi. Right? Instead of, it doesn't say loy chanach, it says he wasn't mechanech. What does that mean? Prat legazla. That comes to exclude a crook. Another difficult word to understand. Meaning a guy steals somebody's house. Okay, so he has himself a new house, right? Because he stole it.
What's the argument? It's not his house.
What? But I guess he stole it.
Or say en karka nexelis.
What?
En karka nexelis. How could he steal a house unless he actually took the house and picked it up and moved it somewhere else?
He doesn't steal it, he moves in.
Right, so that's called en karka nexelis.
He steals the use of the house.
No, the karka, this is not, is a house. Is that considered karka?
We have it by Sotah.
Yeah, but so what?
Okay.
We're not dealing with Hilchas Gazlanim here. We're dealing with Hilchas new house.
Does
For
the
him, it's a
Torah
new
recognize
house.
adverse possession?
That's the point. We don't care about who owns it. Or do we? That's the point of this.
That's the thing.
Point
He
of this
stole
Gemara.
it.
That's what we're dealing
So
with.
I'm saying, is it his? Is it legally his? Was it Yish?
No, it's never going to be legally his. That's what he's saying. Ain't karka nexelis. He can't steal a house. It's not going to be legally his. But he has a new house. For all intents and purposes, he just moved into a new house.
So halacha would not recognize adverse possession?
I don't know. I don't know how it's recognizing something, right?
Maybe it's the use of the house.
Maybe, but that's okay. I don't know. It has to be his house. If he's just renting, nobody's going to think that renting makes you potter, I think. All right? I'm saying renting. I don't know. Let's see. Weiter. So, lema the like Rav Yosef Glili. Let's say this is not like Rav Yosef Glili. Rav Yosef Glili ha'amar v'racha levav zeh ha'misyorek. When it says anybody who's soft-hearted, right, should not come to war, that's somebody who's scared. On Talmud Beis now, me averus should be yodoi. It's somebody who's scared that he did averus. That's what Gershon was referring to. Right? Anybody who thinks he has averus should not go to the war. So that means you really have to be a big tzaddik, because who really thinks that they don't have averus? Which I don't know exactly what that means either, because I mean the pasuk says everybody did averus, everybody does averus, right? So, yeah. So the kasha is, so the reason why he shouldn't go to the war is not because he has a new house that he stole. He shouldn't go to the war because he should be afraid, because he's a ganef, a gazlan. He's a gazlan. So the Gemara answers, "Afilu temer Rav Yosef Glili could go in the ava tshuva v'yav dami." It's talking about where he did tshuva and he gave back the money. Right. So therefore, he's not scared. He's not scared. So he stole it, then he gave it back. Right. So therefore, he's not scared that meaning he did tshuva. So it's interesting. So it comes out that you could have done an avera as long as you did tshuva. Meaning, it's not like if you never did an avera in your life, right? You did it as long as you did tshuva, then you're okay, right? That's sort of when you're supposed to say edus, you're supposed to do tshuva.
Well, this is a lav shnitikla essay, and you're talking about where he did the essay. Where does it? He did the essay. I don't know about the tshuva, but he did the essay.
You're saying the essay wipes it out. That's what you're saying. Wipes out the love. I hear. That's a good point.
It's a little schwer here because he didn't really do the asay. He didn't do the vahesha.
Well, that's the
he used
thing.
Takanas Marish. He returned money.
Right. So he paid for it, but he didn't give back the house. Because otherwise, if he gave back the house, then what's the whole shiloh? He doesn't have the house.
Yeah.
Right?
But it only works with Takanas Marish.
Right. So Takanas Marish, what Gershon's referring to, is that they made a takana. If somebody steals a house or steals things and puts it into his house, if you're going to make him give back the beam, let's say a guy steals a beam and he puts it into his house. If you're going to make him give back the beam, he's never going to admit that he did it because he's going to have to take down his whole house. So then they just make him pay for it. Right? So Gemara asks, if that's the case, then he should give it back, right? Meaning, he should come back. He's as if he bought a house. It's legit, so he should come back. Since he got it as a ganav, as a gazlan, so Mamela, he's out from that. Right? So again, so therefore he's not potter. Okay, fine. So then the Gemara says, who is a person who planted a vineyard? Asher nota, ainly ela nota. That's only talking about somebody who planted. If he took it and he yarshin, same Gemara as before, or was given to him matana, how do you know? Right? Who's the person who planted a kerem? So we're saying ainly, so it means a kerem. I'm sorry. Who's the person who planted? Right? Kerem, ainly a kerem. That only tells you a vineyard. What is it? How do you know that it's coming to include any 5 trees that you planted together with the diagram that Rashi had on Amud Aleph? And even if it's different meaning, each tree is a different meaning. That you planted. Well, maybe it comes to include even 4 trees or 5. Tamalaymar Karen. So therefore it says Karen. Okay? Fine. Rabbi Lazar Yaakov Aimer, Karen Kimashmoi. Nope, only if you actually, it's the Pashat Pshat and Karen. It's just you have to has to be a person who actually planted it, not somebody who yarshin it. Loi chilel, but loi chileloi, right? But it says loi chilel. It doesn't say the loi chileloi, like him. So now we get into some real, what do you call it? Planting, gardening stuff. It's for Simon. Yeah, problem mavrik comes to exclude somebody who does havracha and market, meaning who we said layers, and somebody harkavas to graft, right? Meaning, if they planted a new vineyard based on just grafting, then that's not enough. If he got new trees because he grafted, that's not enough to make him potter from going to the army, right? Whether the person actually planted a vineyard, whether he was mavrich or whether he was markiv. Like kasha, kanvar kovas iser, kanvar kovas heter. One is talking about when he did the grafting beheter, which is basically he takes 2 of the same type of tree and he grafts it. And Kamar Kovas Heter, I'm sorry, that's the Kamar Kovas Isser is where he takes 2 types, 2 different meaning, right? And to create a second min. And here we're talking about Harkovas Heter, we're talking about with a Heter. Okay, so when I ask, hi Harkovas Heter, Hechi Dami, what is the Harkova of a Heter? Ilema Yalda Yalda, meaning what's exactly the case of where he grafted one tree onto another. If it's a young tree to another young tree, right? Meaning young that it's within the first 3 years. So then typically then the reason why he's potter from going out to the war is because he planted the base. Meaning he has plants that are in the ground. Then he takes other plants and he puts it together. Right? So if it's a brand new, if everything is brand new, so then forget about that he's potter that for doing the grafting. He's potter even from the original branch. Ella Yalda Biskena. So what are we talking about? We're talking about where a Yalda, he grafted a new one, less than 3 years old, onto an old one, which already had Arla and Neteravai. If you have a young, meaning less than 3 years old, and you graft it to an old tree, Butla or Yalda Biskena becomes Batal, the Ain Badin Arla, and it doesn't have Din Arla at all. Right? It becomes Batal. So, and there's no Arla, meaning it becomes Batal to the old tree. So if it's Batal to the old tree, then it's as if he didn't plant a new vineyard, he's just replanting an old vineyard. So that should be okay. Right? Meaning he should go back to the war because it's nothing new. Now based on all this, you have the, so what do you mean by batal? Batal b'shishim, right? Or is it, so it's, there's a shaila whether it's zev is goyra, so therefore it doesn't have the status of the new growth, or is it taka if it's batal, right? And this, what would be tali, this thing, if you take, this is where you get into the whole grafting of the esrogim. Right, you try and graft an esrog on a tree onto a lemon tree. So is it considered a new entity? Is it not considered a new entity? Fine. So whatever it is, so what exactly the grafting that we're talking about? So really, we're talking about one young tree and another young tree. We're going to not the lahach kamaisa l'siyagu l'karis. Talking about where he planted the first wood that was planted was meant for fences and for beams, meaning he planted these trees, but not intending to do it for fruit. He was intending to do it for just wood. So therefore, there's no din arla on it. It's not a naitel siyagu l'karis patam and arla. So he's patam from arla. So now the base tree was patam from arla. Then he went and he took it from. Then he went and took a new growth and put it onto this, and a new growth, and he what do you call it? What's the word again we're looking for?
Grafted.
Right, thank you. He grafted it, so the new fruit is something new that's going to need arla. So maybe that's the case. That's what the Gemara is saying is the case. Again, we're looking for a case where he's grafting something new onto something old. Right, and the old will not take over the new. So if the old was meant for, how do you call it? For wood and not for fruit, so then it doesn't have any arla. Now when he's mark of it, then it does become arla. Fine, okay. So then what I asked, mashno yalda b'skena the batla. So we said that a yalda on a zakena is batal, mashna yalda b'yalda the loy batal, and a yalda, that's not batal. Meaning, why don't you say that when you took one less than 3-year-old tree and put it onto another less than 3-year-old tree? So why don't you say that it's batal, right? And therefore, then you should be pater from everything also. Right? So the Gemara answers, Hasam imim lachala la bas mahadari. There, if when you have the tree that was already 10 years old, they already kept the arla and the neteravai, and you decide to change your mind, there's nothing to change your mind on. There's no arla. There's never going to be arla on it. So therefore, you're never going to be pater from. You're never going to be pater. But but here, if you plant a young tree with a young tree, even if you think you're going to plant the young one of them for wood, that you could still change your mind on because you can uproot it. Now it doesn't mean uproot it for that, meaning it could the perikaima. It could go for Paris, right? It could go for Paris. So when I asks, Midi dahava aolu me'elen, right? So we're talking about that it's the trees that it's similar to trees that grow by themselves. I mean, you have a tree that's wild, right? Nobody grew it; it grew by itself. Do you have to keep the dinam of arla? So of course you do. I don't know, of course, but you have to. It's not olu me'elen chayav and arla. They're chayav and arla. So if a tree that grew by itself is chayiv in Arla, so for sure, if a guy who originally planted the tree just for wood, and then he changes his mind and he wants to use it for fruit, so then of course it'll be chayiv in Arla, even if it didn't start off that way. Okay, so then the Gemara asks, but look, we have a different way that you could have grafting, right? Let's say it's talking about a kerem of partners, the high hadar adidei, the high hadar adidei, and each one will go back from the war based on his chelik, right? For him, it's new. For the guy that had the older tree, is meaning yalda b'yalda, I mean he's going to be potter, and the guy that grafted is going to be potter, right? Because meaning it's two partners. Some are a papa zois and meras. What it means to say is kerem shnei shutvin ain't chayzin alem archem milchama. Kerem has to be, you have to own it by yourself. If you own it together with partners, then it's not. You don't go ain't archem alem archem milchama. Okay. Umayshna mechamisha achen umeis echen mehen b'milchama the kulan chayzin. And why is this different than 5 brothers? Right? You have 5 brothers are in the war, and 1 brother died. So now all 5 or 6 brothers, whichever it is, right? One died in the wars and without kids, so they have to do yibum or chalitza. All 5 go home. Why does that not look like a shutfis? And they shouldn't go home, right?
What I mean, is zakuk only to the oldest, no?
Yeah, but each one is he is zakuk to the oldest, but each one is a zakuk. Each one is on the hook.
No, isn't it zakuk to the oldest? If the oldest is not available, then it's zakuk to the next.
Yeah, but one can jump the gun. One could jump the gun.
The Zika's to all of them.
The zakuk is to all. Yes, yeah, he has first dibs, but his younger brother can jump him if he wants. Whatever it is, they're all considered connected. So why are they all potter? It should be like shutvim, and shutvim are not potter from war. That's a Gemara's kasha, which I tell you. The kulan chayzin, they all go back. Right? So if one woman can make 5 guys potter from the war, so why can't one vineyard make them potter? So our answer is Hasam kol chad b'chad karina be'ishtay. Each one of them can call this woman who they're supposed to do even to their wife. Hacha kol chad b'chad like karina be'karma. Each one is not going to call it his vineyard because he's not the only owner. Fine. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar. Rav Nachman Yitzchak has a different shot that you could say with the grafting, right? B'mavrich Elon b'yerek. It's talking about where he does a grafting from a tree onto a vegetable. Well, that's a literal translation, right? So, and a yerek does not have dinim of arla, right? So if he just planted vegetables, he wouldn't be potter from. In order to be potter from the war, it has to have arla. So if it's vegetables, it's not going to potter him. So since he grafted onto a vegetable, the grafting will, because it's a fruit, will get him out of the war, but the vegetable will not. But v'aytanahu tetanya hamavrich ilan b'yerek. If somebody grafts a tree onto a vegetable, Rav Shimon Gamliel matter. Rav Shimon Gamliel says it's mutter. Rav Shimon Rav Yehuda ben Gada ish karaka. That was in the name of Rav Yehuda ben Gada from Karaka. Chacham ma'isen. Chacham say it's aser, meaning you're not allowed to. The Chacham say you're not allowed to graft this way, and Rav Shimon Gamliel says you could graft this way, right? So. Mamela, if you're allowed to graft that way, so then you're going to get out of going to the war. Fine. So now we go back to the original pshat, right? So what we're going to say, there's another way. Hamani Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov. This whole brayso is Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov. That meaning Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov said it has to be by the house and it has to be that you plant the kerem. Any other way you get it doesn't count. So Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov Hasam kerem k'mashmoi. Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov didn't say kerem. That's the way it's heard. Hachanami, meaning you do it the way it's heard. Meaning the way kerem is if you plant a vineyard. Hacha nami not the k'mashmoi. When it says planted, it's also k'mashmoi. Naita in. If you plant, yes, mavrichu markiv loy, but it's just not included. He's Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov. It's like Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov was basing it on the psukim that it's not considered it doesn't, only a legit kerem, doing anything else is not going to be enough. Fine. If you have, is an interesting din, if you have a growth that doesn't grow higher than a tefach, right? I don't know if a passion fruit tree, that's what Eliyahu was growing, grows higher than a tefach. But if you have something that's less than a tefach, it's chayim in arla all its years. Why? The mischazi kibas shat.
Right, it's a vine. It's a vine. It'll grow unlimitedly high.
Oh, okay. So then that does, maybe passion, this was maybe a heta. This is maybe a
fruit is a vine, but it grows up on something else. It won't grow on the ground. It grows
so I don't. So mistama, that's considered up. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know anything about these halachas of Zerayim. But either way, it's interesting because this thing that grows less than a tefach, everybody's that's passing by is going to think that it's a new growth, because why is it so low to the ground? So Mamela, you can never use it. There's a takonas l'chama, you can never use it. It's always arla, right? Because it's a marasayin. Because so they said, okay, it's arla. That's only when there's two of these, opposite two of these, and then you have one sticking out like a tail, right? Which is but so meaning it's not set up the way Rashi says it, with two in the top, two in the bottom, and one in the middle, the way that diagram of Rashi was. It's one that sticks out like a tail. So it's like right, avakule kerem. But if the whole thing is planted like a regular vineyard, kol islay, then it has a kol. Everybody's going to know and say, oh, that's a vineyard. They had arla, and now it's good to go. So Kiyosar Rav Dimi, Yom Rav Yochanan, Shimon Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, Meis, Toifas Arba Amas L'Kriya Shema. So now once we started with these dinim from him, Rav Dimi, so we're gonna continue the things between.
I'm just reminding you, Meir.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll just finish up a little bit more. So Kiyosar Rav Dimi, Yom Rav Yochanan, Shimon Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, Meis, Toifas Arba Amas L'Kriya Shema. A mace literally means he grabs onto Arba Amas L'Kriya Shema. Tichsiv Loyeg L'Rosh. Cheref, we say somebody who makes fun of somebody who's poor is cherpa to Hashem, meaning Hashem's going to get upset. So therefore, you should not read Kriya Shema within 4 amos of a kaver, because the nifter is going to be jealous. Now, how come everybody says Tillim within 4 amos of a grave? I don't know. I think I once saw from the Stipler that you should stay more than 4 amos away from a grave. Fine.
Doesn't that carry Kriya Shema mean the mitzvah? To do a mitzvah of Kriya Shema. You can't do mitzvahs near a mace.
I'm saying
Tillim is saying psukim. You're not doing it. I was saying Talmud Torah. You're saying
no,
Tillim.
It's not Talmud Torah, but I mean, lots of people say lots of Tillim, Gershon. Now you're telling them that it's not a mitzvah.
Listen, it's the school world. Well, every school is a mitzvah now.
Don't use the same pasuk to tell you put your tzitzis in when you're in a basic forest.
Yes, we're going to get to that. Yeah. Fine. Are we going to get to that? Is it tonight? No, I don't think we're going to get. It's not in the Gemara. It's somebody discusses it. It's the same thing. The same thing with the tzitzis. There's a whole diyun with the tzitzis. If you bury the mace with tzitzis on the tachrichin, so then some say it's not loig l'rush because he's got tzitzis on, right? Also, it should be like, what?
Most people you bury your dead. I mean,
yes, that's true. Yeah, Naftali, some do and some don't. I don't know nowadays, but in the old days, that some did and some didn't. Okay, fine. If you have a stepdaughter who grew up with stepbrothers, she's not allowed to marry her brothers, even though they're step siblings, so they're not relatives. Right? We had one locally last year. So the Gemara says you're not allowed to do that, because it looks like marrying siblings. And that's not true. It's got a kol. Everybody's going to find that if there's such a hak like that, then everybody finds out. So then it's okay. That you do in the garden. So leket, shikha, and peah are all the things when peah is the corner of the field. Leket is when they anything, if one or two pieces of grain fall down, so then he's not allowed to pick it up. And shikha is what they forgot. There are also one or two pieces that they forgot. So let's say they did it, they made it into a pile. So now that looks like when you make a pile, so normally lekach chicken pay are not chayiv because it's going to aniyim, so it's not chayiv in chumas and maisis. But let's say the guy made a pile of the lekach chicken pay. So then if you don't take chumas and maisis over that, it's going to look like marasayin because most times lekach chicken pay is not piled up, right? So if somebody did pile it up, so now you have to take out chumas and maisis. Hook full of maisa, then you're going to have to take on maisis. So amar ula loyam, that's only in the field. I will be here, but in the city, kala islay lamilsa. But if the stuff is schlepped from the farms to the city, then it's already a call that everybody says, oh, we have lekach shikhan paya here, and there's no concern. Yalda hapchusa mitefach. If you have a yalda vine that's less than a tefach, eina mekadesh says Azrayim is not makdish the Azrayim. Meaning, if you have a vine that's less than a tefach in a klai, so you have something called klai akerim. You're not allowed to plant in a vineyard anything else. This is exactly what you can't plant, what you could plant. Right, so it's not, if you have a little vine that's less than a tefach, that's not going to make the klai akerim. We call it kadosh because it becomes asa, and you have to destroy the field, right? So like we said before, that's only if it's 2 by 2 and one is sticking out like a tail, which is not your classic vineyard. But if the whole thing is like a kerem, then makdish, then even one less than a tefach will make it hektish, right? Okay, that's Zerayim thing also. When we get to Rav Yochanan, Mishum Rav ben Yaakov on Talmud Aleph, mace toifus arba amas l'tuma. A mace holds on to 4 amas for tuma, right? Meaning, like we said before, that there's 4. You need to have 4 amas, otherwise loik l'rush. So but this is for tum and tara. So you have to stay away. The Chacham wanted you staying away more than 4 amas from a grave, because then you might have issues. But Tana tuna. Right? And the Tana said the same thing. Chotzer hakever ha'imid b'soichet tar. If you have a chotzer of a kever, so that's basically what they call a crypt, right? Like if you go up into the Galil, you see the caves where they bury like that. They're doing it now in Har Manuchas, right? So if you have a kever that's standing in it, so it's tar. But if somebody's standing in it, he's tar. But it has to have at least 4 amas there. But that's only when the opening is up top, meaning there's like a hole in the ground and you got to go in through it. But if there's a door from the side to get into this crypt, what do you call it, into this grave, then everybody says you need 4 amas, right? Even Beis Hillel's Maida, you need 4 amas of space. Otherwise, it's going to be tumah. So the Gemara says, Klapi Lai, it should be the opposite. Adarabah. Minatzad, if you're going in from the side, midra v'nafik, you can stay away from you can position yourself that maybe you're not within the 4 tvachim. Milamala, but if you're going in off the top, you're going to make an oil. You have a hole, and inside the hole is all these graves. So you're going to make a covering over the hole when you go in. That's only when the opening is, so we flip it, but that's when the opening is on the side. Arba amas, but if it's open from the milamala, you get 4 amas. That's only in the chatzar kever that the mechitzas are very what do you call it? It actually has a mechitza. You can see what's going on. Well, meis ba'alma toughest, but a meis ba'alma does always get 4 amas, right? Meaning this that by a what do you call it? By a crypt, you don't need 4 amas. That's only if there's a mechitza there. But a meis ba'alma will always have 4 amas because you have no idea what's going to be going on. Okay, we'll stop over there. I'm going to run to Ma'ariv. The Olam should have themselves a